Hey, and we're live. Episode 113, This Life in Tech. I'm Jason.
And I'm Dan.
That's right. Now, hold on a second. Why the fuck isn't this refreshing?
Who knows?
There we go. I wanted to monitor chat, so I have to have like this window layered under the window, but I got to mute it so I don't hear myself.
Technology.
Yeah, this is a pro setup, man. Hey, I'll tell you this. It's been some time since we had like a technical difficulty that prevented us from having the podcast.
Well, Google gets better all the time. Unlike Apple, Google improves consistently every iteration. Apple, you never know what you're going to get. It might be better or it could be worse.
So give me your opinion on this, man.
All right.
So I was talking to some people that are in my future. Okay. We were talking about if you were going to set up a lab, what computers would you want in a lab? Like it was just a theoretical discussion, hypothetical, right? Part theory, part hypothetical, because none of it's going to happen. And we're just talking about what you would ideally do. And man, the religion of Windows versus Mac comes up, and it turned into this debate of, well, this is what's interesting. This is what the debates turned into, as far as I can tell. The debate wasn't which OS was better. It was which one can run the more types of OS in virtual machines that give you the biggest breadth of experience. So nobody is arguing that like the base OS is the best. It was I can run VMware or VirtualBox and virtualize all these different ones.
Well, then the answer is simple. It's Linux. It doesn't matter. I mean, that's the answer. Because if you're running anything virtualizing, why would I put a different operating system, regardless of Microsoft or Apple, and then put a hypervisor on top of it to run other? It's a waste of resources. Just go Linux. I mean, what's the one that's instead of using VMware, there's another one that Proxmox. I would just go Proxmox and call it a day, because VMware with ESXi, they want to charge you for it now. So I'm like, forget that. I will go Proxmox and be perfectly fine.
Yeah, well, and that's one of the reasons why I switched to VirtualBox a long time ago. There's especially because you can build a lot of custom tools yourself because it's open and the API is really strong. For a little bit of labor, man, I had a lot of functionality for zero cost.
Yep. I mean, nothing wrong with VirtualBox other than that Oracle owns it. At some point, you never know. Oracle will just stop.
It's true. Speaking of which, there's a good segue. What's this bullshit I read this week about Google ramping down hardware production, specifically for the tablets and the hardware? And it was in the tablet Pixelbook area. And I'm looking at this Pixelbook, which I have right here, which I've been loving. And I'm like, are they going to do it to me again? Are they going to do it to me again?
No, I don't think. What they're going to wind up doing is trying to find someone else to make it for them, like they did with the actual Pixel phones, right?
Mm-hmm.
LG or HTC, Huawei. It won't be Huawei, which I find hilarious. Everything going on with Huawei. I'm like, what? You mean a Chinese company that's in China and manufacturing something that looks just like Cisco? You mean they're part of the Chinese government? What?
Yeah, I love that. I love that argument. Oh, we would never hand over data to the government. Well, that's technically true because you are the government. Therefore, you'd be handing it over to yourself.
Yeah. What are they?
I mean,
the stuff. I mean, whenever. I mean. I just, if you know that's what you're getting, then go ahead. And now they're trying to sue the U.S. government. Good luck. The U.S. government doesn't have to buy in. Yeah. See what happened to Eugene Kaspersky. All that stuff got canned. And I've been telling people that as well for years. I would never use Kaspersky. Not that it may not be a good product. It might. I'm sure it is a good product. As a matter of fact, I can tell you that with some malware that's out there, it actually fixes some of the problems that you will have with Microsoft. It does. They absolutely fix the problem. And then they give you their little bit of malware to make you part of a C2 network, which is perfectly fine. I mean, if you just want to fix the problem. So
right now, let me ask you a question though. Would you, as an individual, as a sovereign individual, would you ever buy a Huawei or a Xiaomi device?
Fuck no.
Because here's the problem I have, man. Like, to this day, in my opinion, there's still nothing better than an iPad for a tablet. Like, I have a really hard time finding an Android tablet that can replicate that experience. And if you can't replicate it in the hardware, let's say 1-to-1, then you have to compensate on price because, of course, the Apple stuff's massively overpriced, in my opinion. And you know what? And I don't know how this necessarily happens other than propaganda, but two of the best rated devices after Samsung are Huawei and Xiaomi. And then I think to myself, okay, well, to save some money, am I going to buy directly from China? And then I think to myself, well, really, why do I have a problem with it? Because I'm ending up buying the electronics indirectly from China because a lot of it's manufactured there.
Well, I mean, the reason why those things are rated high is because you've got like 5 billion people in China. They're just in, like. That's the reason. I just don't. The iPad is a great tablet, but if I'm using something, I would rather use my Pixelbook, which is still essentially a tablet, or even my Surface Pro. They're a tablet. I am actually more limited on an iPad for what I would do for full production of what I want, where I don't have any of those limitations on my Pixelbook or Surface Pro. Even the iPad Pro, I'm just not a fan.
I like it as a device. I'll tell you where it falls short because it's really good as a tablet. Where it falls short compared to like a 2-in-1 is there's no good keyboard for it.
Yeah,
it's the same problem I have with the Surface Pro 4. Great machine, I love it, right? But there's no good keyboard, particularly if you want to use it like sitting on a couch or a chair. If you put it on the desk, it's awesome, no problems. Whereas with the Pixelbook, it's awesome in every format I've ever used it, even on a plane.
Yep, and that's why the Dell. I have this Dell 2-in-1, and it is closer to the Surface Book than it is the Surface Pro, and I've got a full keyboard, everything, and I love my Pixelbook, right? So I go back and forth between those two devices. It will be interesting if Apple ever comes out with something like the Surface Pro or the Pixelbook. I would wonder if I would go back to Mac because I like Mac OS.
Yeah, well, I tend to as well. I think it's easy to use right out of the box. You can get right to work no matter what your work is, in my experience. You have a lot of power, and it's a strong ecosystem.
Yeah. But I have zero loyalty to any brand, unlike Dr. Ken.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing too how he's like on the extreme. He's extremely disloyal to Facebook, if you can put it that way, and he's extremely loyal to Apple.
I wonder if he's so disloyal to Facebook that makes me kind of think he closetly loves Mark Zuckerberg and everything he does. He's just jealous.
Yeah, it's his Steve Jobs.
Yeah, I think so. Speaking of Apple products, how much is a used iPhone worth?
I couldn't tell you.
I bet you it's less than $1,000.
Yeah.
Oh. See, this is what happens when Connor doesn't take my advice. I say, look, there's nothing good happens after 3 a.m. in Miami.
Especially Miami, dude.
Leaving a club at 5 a.m., what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah. And here we go again. Him and John Jones should just like partner up. And they could be like a dynamic duo of villainy. They'd be unstoppable.
Well, I would say they're kind of unstoppable now.
Yeah.
So they don't have to worry about anything. So we were talking a little bit. So I know there was a fight last night. I was actually more interested to see what kind of shenanigans Ben Askren would do. I haven't looked at anything yet, but you've got an update.
Well, I don't know if he was scheduled to be there, but let's start at the beginning of the week, not the week, but of the weekend of fighting, right? I know Ben Askren showed up, and did like an open Q&A in the arena, and Darren Till came out of the back.
Yep, I saw that.
Yeah, yelled at him, gave everybody the finger, so forth and so on. So there was some lulls there. And then, of course, the whole time, Askren's been tweeting at just about everybody. None of these guys are going to fight me, whatever, right? Okay. So, spoiler alert, everybody. Masvidal wins, knocks out Till. Like, knocks him out, dude. And after the fight, is backstage being interviewed. And in the middle of the interview, another fighter who had already fought, I don't know if walked past him or walked out somewhere else and said something to him off camera. And Masvidal didn't like it and basically went over and comboed the guy and knocked him out too. So this is where the real comedy comes in, because that was, let's be honest, entertaining. And Ben Askren tweets, the only reason Masvidal did that is so he doesn't have to fight me. Meaning either now those two guys are going to have to fight because they have beef, or he's going to get suspended.
It's pretty true. I mean, though I did see what's Connor's BJJ partner?
Oh, Dylan Dennis.
Dylan Dennis. So Dylan Dennis was on ESPN, and he talked about how that Ben Askren does not want to fight him. It would not be a good fight. He goes, he's a wrestler. So I will pull guard. He can't do anything because I'm not someone that, because he was talking about all the way in which Ben Askren, how he does things. He's like, look, my stand-up's not very good, but his stand-up is even worse. And when it gets to the ground, I can fight off my back. He can't. So, and which is pretty true. I mean, at least Dylan was like, look, my stand-up's not very good. I have to improve on that. There's a big difference for me going and doing some type of, BJJ tournament. I've never had to stand up. There's a big difference between MMA and either wrestling or boxing or BJJ. I mean, he was breaking it down. It was quite interesting to see how humble he was about the fight game and where he sits today. But I pretty much believe it. You get him on the mat, I wouldn't want to be anywhere near Dylan Dennis. That dude's a straight up killer.
You know, I didn't see that, but I read some of the back and forth too. Dude, that's a fight I would love to watch.
Yeah. Because I think Dylan is going to wind up being, he's going to wind up being a stud. If he ever develops even a part, I mean, you could probably more quickly develop a stand-up game than you can a ground game.
Well, at least some fundamentals. I mean, yeah. And because you can see this, like with Damian Maia, perfect example. Damian Maia is a really high-level, world-class Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy, right?
Oh, yeah.
And over time has developed the ability to at least have exchanges with people on the feet.
Yeah.
And I don't know that inherently one is easier than the other. I think boxing, if it's just boxing, not kickboxing, is more limited because it's just two hands. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the fundamentals can take you really far. Really far.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even just learning to keep your head off center.
Yeah.
And that'll keep you from getting KO'd is what it'll do.
Yeah, it does. Keeping your chin down, hands up at all times. I mean, it's
Yep. Well, and that's one of the biggest things you've seen over the years, especially with wrestlers, is they never learn to tuck their chin. And that's like the first thing I learned when I was taking boxing.
Yeah, keep that chin tucked. And the reason it prevents you more from the head being able to snap back, which is what winds up essentially getting you knocked out. Yeah.
Well, the other thing too is you tuck it in kind of like a turtle, and it like physically protects you because your shoulders are rolled up against it.
Yeah. So it will be interesting to see how far Dennis goes in the current place, because eventually he's going to be at the UFC. I mean, there's just no.
Well, the only thing that's bullshit is he got fined by the Nevada Athletic Commission for that brawl with Khabib when he was just standing there. I mean, you can say whatever you want. I don't know how you find somebody for talking trash. I mean, that's kind of ridiculous.
Well, according to him in that interview, he said, "Look, I'm a corner man, and a corner man, I'm not talking to those people. I'm talking to Conor." He goes, "I don't think I didn't say anything." And I kind of believe that. He probably, now maybe after the fight, he might have said some stuff, but during the fight, I don't think he was probably doing anything. He was focused. I mean, he doesn't want his guy to lose. Why would he be worried about what the other guy's doing? He's talking to his guy about, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that.
Right. I don't know, man. So who knows when we'll see Conor again? I read something this morning that he said he wants to fight in July.
He'll fight. It'll just be in Miami, probably.
Yeah.
He may not be able to leave the state of Florida for a little while.
Dude, here's the difference with him and Jones, though, right? Is at what point is he actually going to get charged with a felony and it's stiff, and then he's not going to be able to come back into the country?
We don't know the whole details of what happened that night. I mean, that's the thing. We just see one-sided. I have to believe that, especially with how popular Conor is, he takes pictures with fans all the time. This cat had to do something. Either it was in the club, and that's why this guy was out there waiting, or he was outside the club and said something. Because I just don't. Conor's persona, seems to be that he wants as many pictures of him out there with his fans and showing that he's a guy of the people. So I think something else happened here.
Well, this is what you can verify. It's not speculation or TMZ gossip. This dude and his buddies were following Conor around pretty much all night, and they were in the tweet feed. I mean, you can read it; it's public. They were looking to get into an altercation.
Yeah, and people don't understand. Conor did, he grew up in an area where it's very likely he was doing things with the different, mobs in Ireland.
It still is. They still control it. Here, if I was Conor, this is what I would be thinking to myself at this point. Where were my bodyguards? They were standing there, and they were just standing there with their hands in their pockets. Why aren't you keeping this dude away from me?
Yeah, I would definitely be slapping him too.
Yeah,
bunch of jabronis.
Yeah, and as Bonnie's saying, it's one of those things where you can step back and ask, because there's footage of this. Why were they filming?
Yeah,
I mean, anyway. But this is one of the how in the 21st century, if you're this famous, and I don't know where you could go and not know who Conor McGregor is at this point. How could you go around and not expect shit like this to happen?
Well, see, if I was Conor right now, I'd be taking those photos and those videos, and I'd put it up to Facebook's new imaging control. That way, none of those things would ever end up on Facebook. I'd be like, hey, this is private.
That's an interesting concept, man. We may repeat this on Tuesday if we actually have a Tuesday show.
We know we're not having a Tuesday show. I mean, actually, this Tuesday I might be able to make it. Tuesday's a bad day for me. And later in the week is easier. Ken, this is what happens when we try to accommodate Ken.
Well, it's just one of those things where this semester Ken and I have classes on opposite days.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll work it out, man. We got plenty of time. At least we're getting our Sunday ones in.
Yeah.
But so this is an interesting thing with Facebook. So upload a photo so that Facebook's platform essentially will prevent it from being posted elsewhere on their platform by other people.
I would immediately have been taking this and posted it up there. That way, none of those photos and videos would show up on Facebook anywhere. We get deleted constantly. That's how nefarious I am.
Right. So I started thinking, well, okay, so what if I start photoshopping my face on all kinds of different bodies? Will the platform learn that ain't your body type? That's not your size. You're not that ripped. You're not that fat. You know what I mean? How deep is it going to learn what you look like so that it can prevent pictures being posted?
Who knows? If I had to assume, Facebook's just looking to get all these private photos so they can sell them to TMZ to make more money.
So I'll go on a limb and I'll say I'm actually partially a fan of this. Partially. And here's the part where I'm not. Once again, like Twitter, the mistake, in my opinion, these people are making in developing these services and these platforms is that they don't make the back end transparent and accessible to the user. If they did that and you had control over it so that you could curate it yourself, the algorithm, I'm not talking about the data, I'm talking about the tuning of the learning in the platform. I would 100% support it.
It'd be interesting, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to get more into it either this Tuesday or maybe even next Sunday, because I have to read up a little bit more on it. But it was interesting when you mentioned it as we were talking through the Connor thing. Like, this is, if I did something I didn't want out there, I was immediately what I would do.
Yeah, shit, yeah, man. I would get as many photos as I could and just blanket the platform with it.
Yep. I would absolutely make sure that I control the narrative.
Well, and so I just thought of this. Think about it this way, man. You could effectively render, let's call it an incident of some kind, right? Event's probably a better word. As if it never happened.
Yeah. I'd be like, it's fake news.
Yeah. Oh, Ken.
I would do it. I'd be like, it's fake news.
Yeah. Well, right, because at that point, there's no photo or video evidence.
You got it.
So it's just somebody's word, and that's not the way our culture's headed.
No, it's not. It's interesting. I think because I have to catch a plane, so I don't have too much more time.
Sure.
But we'll briefly, we were talking also about like Equifax, and people say they didn't do enough with cybersecurity. I'm not sure what enough is, right? I mean, there is in some way, shape, or form a conflict many times with companies and stockholder value when it's compared to how much investment do I make in cybersecurity. Now, the intangible part of that asset is how much funding do I need to supply to an organization to protect my intellectual property? Because that's what we're really talking about. And I look at my brand's image as a part of that. What is that worth? And you never spend more money in protecting something than what it's worth. So you just have to know. And then at what point do you make that? And you just simply say to your stockholders, which I think is the most important thing, this is our risk profile. This is what we're protecting against. And we're going to spend X amount of money that is commensurate with protecting X. And that means there are things that are going to happen. Our companies that try to do nothing but prevent a nefarious act from occurring are in a losing battle. I think if they change their model to, I know something bad is going to happen, and we need to close that threat window in X amount of days. Right? We've detected an event. We want to detect faster and then remediate and get back to a normal state of operations within X period of time. And that's how we're going to spend our money.
Well, right. And so that's the thing to me is on either end of the spectrum, revenue and security, let's put them as opposing forces, right? Not opposites, but opposing forces. We could agree that neither can be at zero, or at least neither can be at zero for very long and the business be sustainable. So you have to do a little of both. Mm-hmm. And that's the trick, is how much do you do? And there's this conflict between supporting a free market, but then wanting to dictate to free market entities how they spend that money. Because I agree with you. What we're talking about is I need to protect myself to the extent that I can continue generating revenue. Mm-hmm. And in different circumstances, I can generate more or less, but I need to continue generating revenue. Otherwise, I'm not fulfilling my obligation to my shareholders. Well, then why, if you're not going to do that, then why do you exist as a company?
Well, right. And that's why I say, look, if you want to get X amount of revenue, right? Let's say you're going to grow. Let's say you make $1 million a year. Of that $1 million, how much of that revenue should be dedicated to cybersecurity? 5%? 10%, 15%, whatever that number is. So if I predict that next year I'm going to be at 2 million, I need to be spending as if I'm making 2 million of protecting it, not wait till I get to 2 million and then start protecting. And that's where I think companies really miss it. They're not spending on technology where they want to be. They're doing it where they currently exist. This is the kind of stuff, for Ken, this is the kind of stuff they teach us at Michigan, how to predict future value. When you get to those kind of things, you understand. I mean, this is where I'm so super psyched that I, learning the business side, because I can now have that business discussion and go, you don't wait till you're at 2 million in revenue to start spending. You have to act like you're already at 2 million and spend accordingly, or you'll never make the 2 million. And that includes creating the right sales force, the support staff, all of that. Because if you grow too fast, you're going to wind up losing business later because you didn't have the staff to support it.
Right. And I was just going to say, wouldn't you agree that in a lot of ways, spending on technologies is the exact same, let's say, business paradigm as hiring?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely it is. If you don't have the technology stack to support you at 2 million, by the time you get to 2 million, it's too late. And that's, right. If companies were transparent and they'd essentially said, then we could have the real discussion. Because you can ask any person in security, they're going to say, we're not doing enough. Any breach, they didn't do enough. They didn't do enough. They didn't do enough. Well, that's not always true, right? If you're a company that's headquartered in, a location that does not able to attract a lot of talent, it makes it more, you may want to have spent X amount of money on staff, but you just can't get them there.
Right.
So I think companies need to be more transparent on the dollar amount they're spending year over year, and actually have someone on the board. It's not necessarily security, a technologist that can essentially say, look, you're not spending the appropriate amount of money that's going to support your revenue generation in the 3-year plan that you have. If you're going to do this, is what you need to spend in a proportion that is in security. And that, I think, is the real talking points. And then you can go back and check, did you actually spend the amount that you said you were going to? And that's key. Say what you're going to do, and then prove that you did it. And then if a company didn't do it, now as a shareholder, as a board member, I'd be asking, well, why not?
Right. Well, and it ties into what I've been spending probably too much time on at this point, is how to structure goals. And there's this whole concept going back 50 years of what is a SMART goal. That's the acronym. And a big part of that is creating something that's actionable and measurable.
Yeah, very, very true. But anyway, I've run out of time. I just wanted to make sure we got in our Sunday episode. We'll have more coming up, but I got to catch a plane to get back to the Bend.
There you go, man. Welcome back to the North.
Yeah. So the last thing I'll say, for those that I put out there, I'm in Maryland for today, for my younger brother, who was 41, passed away. Still, they don't know the exact reasons as to what happened, but it came down to, he had surgery, and against doctor's orders, he went back to work the day after surgery, and was supposed to be off work for a month. And he had his clavicle repaired, which is not a pain-free surgery. I mean, he broke his collarbone. So if I had to guess, it was probably something to do with pain medication that caused the eventual, passing of his life, which is really sad, especially at 41 years old.
Yeah, man.
I can only imagine, because he was having to do manual labor, and who knows how much pain medication he had to be on. Anyway, I just wanted to say that, I hope he is now in peace, one way or another. And now I'm trying to do some things he has an 8-year-old son. So it's a sad thing. So I appreciate everyone's comments when I announced it a couple of weeks ago, and, thank everyone.
Yeah, well, and I'm sure I speak for a lot of people, man. If there's anything we can do to help anybody in that situation, let us know. I don't want to live in a world where these things happen. I'll say that.
Yeah. So anyway, friends.
Safe travels, brother.
Take care. Peace.
Later, everybody.